Welcome to the discussion of Jordan Peterson's book, We Who Wrestle with God. Today, we will delve into the first chapter, In the Beginning. If you're looking for a general introduction to the book, feel free to check out my previous videos on the topic. Since the review was originally written based on the German edition, there may be slight discrepancies in the quotations. I apologize for this. 1.1 The Concept of God and the Creation of the World. Peterson describes God as a living spirit. As a living spirit, creative, flexible, and active, someone who acts and is. In short, God is a character whose personality unfolds throughout biblical history. Thus, God is the spirit that approaches chaos, confronts the void and the deep, voluntarily shapes what has not yet been realized, and navigates toward the ever-changing horizon of the future. End quote. Here a tension emerges. According to Christian doctrine, there is no changing horizon for God, but rather a predetermined divine plan. This contradiction remains unresolved in Peterson's interpretation. Dignity, faith, and truth. Peterson formulates key theses. Truth is what we practically must consider true. Dignity, the idea of human dignity, is based on the concept of divine image. God is a personality who creatively brings order out of chaos. The Imago Dei doctrine plays a crucial role in this. Believing in the divine image means that we possess dignity, but ultimately, this remains an as-if belief because we need it. Peterson writes, quote, "Do we believe this story? Do we believe what it says and implies? First, what does it mean to believe? We act individually and collectively as if it were true, at least when we behave as we should, at least when we act in our own best interests and those of everyone else." End quote. Here, one might recall Nietzsche, who warned that truth is not always what benefits us. If our concept of dignity is merely a necessary construct, that does not mean it is true, but rather that we need it because we would otherwise break apart. Quote, "Because the assumption of self-worth reflects a reality so profound and real that denying it endangers body and life. And if this assumption is so absolutely necessary, how could it not be true?" End quote. But is a necessary assumption simply true? Peterson asserts, quote, "At what point must we admit that a necessary assumption is true precisely in relation to its necessity? Is it not the case that what is most essential to our survival represents the deepest essence of truth? Any other form of truth runs counter to life, and a truth that does not serve life is only truth by an ultimately counterproductive standard, and thus, in essence, not true at all." End quote. This recalls Nietzsche and seems like an immunization strategy against inconvenient truths. Is it cowardly to adhere only to what serves humanity? Quote, "Moreover, and this underscores the central point, the absence of this faith turns the terrible relationships and states that humans create into the hell they all too often become. Do we believe this? If we waver in this conviction, catastrophe looms." End quote. Here, Peterson employs threats, without scientific evidence that religious societies behave more morally or function better than secular ones. 1-2 Adam's task. Adam names the things around him, thus giving them identity. Peterson states, quote, "Given the dependence of being on consciousness, since a being without consciousness is literally unimaginable and perhaps even impossible, consciousness is the essence underlying being itself." End quote. This echoes Berkeley's esse est percipi, to be is to be perceived. Peterson's view places humans at the center of being, a kind of metaphysical anthropocentrism. 1.3 Consciousness as narrative structure. Peterson argues that our consciousness is structured through stories. Quote, "We cannot help but see the world through a story. More precisely, we see the world through a structure that, when portrayed in a drama or verbalized, is a story." End quote. This thesis seems speculative. Philosophically, one could refer to Husserl's idea that perception is intentional, but the claim that our concepts are organized narratively is questionable. In reality, many people do not experience their lives as continuous stories, but rather as loosely connected episodes. Peterson also draws analogies to mythology. An example is his interpretation of the basilisk in Harry Potter. Quote, The basilisk bites Harry Potter, who must then die but is mysteriously healed by the tears of a phoenix. End quote. The problem: this healing by the phoenix is not part of traditional mythology. It was invented by J.K. Rowling. Nevertheless, Peterson interprets it as an archetype, which shows how arbitrary his archetype theory can be. If any fictional element can be labeled as an ancient universal symbol, the concept loses its meaning. 1.4 Eve and the unconscious. Eve is taken from Adam and represents what Adam is unconscious of. However, the unconscious is an idea that only emerged during the Romantic era and was developed in the 19th century, e.g. Eduard von Hartmann, The Unconscious, 1860. The Hebrew Bible authors likely had no psychoanalytic concepts in mind. Peterson claims that women stand for the marginalized and are more prone to negative emotions, hence why Eve is more susceptible to the serpent's temptation. He also argues that Adam's original sin was that he wanted to impress Eve. However, the biblical text offers no support for this interpretation. Eve eats the fruit because she finds it beautiful, and Adam simply eats as well. Peterson's reading is based more on personal associations than on the actual text. His projection of archetypes onto gender follows outdated stereotypes. Those interested in the origins of these gender roles should examine Romanticism or Fichte, and also recognize how little evidence modern evolutionary biologists have for many of their claims. Conclusion: Peterson's interpretation of the first chapter of We Who Wrestle with God is fascinating but problematic. His ideas about truth, consciousness, and archetypes are highly speculative, often unproven, and sometimes ideologically motivated. His gender interpretations and definition of truth deserve particular scrutiny. In the next chapter, we will explore Adam and Eve. Until then, I wish you thoughtful reflections. Bye.